on September 11th, everybody knows exactly where they were, what they were doing.
I was in my office, and everyone came out into the conference room where there was a widescreen TV.
When I got to the corner of Fifth Avenue, I saw smoke coming up from one of the buildings.
It was very apocalyptic. The destruction was just so hard to believe what was going on.
Out of nowhere, the second plane came in and hit the second tower, and that's when all hell broke loose.
It was the first time that I realized this was intentional. I said, we're under attack. And that moment was surreal.
They recalled all cops and firemen to the scene. All the guys were coming in from everywhere, Staten Island, Long Island, upstate. We all came in, we just put our gear on, we started running to the scene.
More than 3,000 innocent people died in the terrorist attacks on September 11th, one of the darkest days in the history of the United States. The Knights of Columbus response was a shining witness to our principles of charity, unity, fraternity, and patriotism. This witness showed that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it.
On September 11th, I had the rank of acting battalion chief, and I was in charge of the Marine Division for the FDNY. And it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. I was doing routine paperwork, training, etc. And it wasn't too far after that I heard a commotion outside. I walked over to my windows and I saw the hole in the North Tower and the dark volumes of petroleum-based smoke that was coming up. And immediately, my mind started racing. We reached the west side of Manhattan on the Hudson River, and I started seeing the South Tower buckling. And at that point, I said, it's collapsing. Quickly ran to an underground parking lot that was used as a staging area. The noise, it was like a freight train coming down, and sure enough, everything turned black. I started finding my way out, and I found my way out to Vesey Street, and then when I came out, I just couldn't believe what I saw. It was a war zone. I met a couple of friends and 2 firefighters, and I said, get some tools. We got people trapped here. And as I get to the corner, Battalion Chief Ray Downey, he's a Knight. He's a brother Knight from Deer Park. And one of the toughest guys I've ever met. He was a Marine. And so Ray and I proceeded to assist those individuals. The brotherhood of the fire department, it's extremely similar to the Brotherhood of the Knights of Columbus. And in fact, many firemen are Knights.
My dad was just the regular dad growing up. He was a family man. We were involved with the Knights of Columbus here in town. He was a coach. He was just a dad that got very involved with his family, but also with others too. He made an impact on many people's lives that he touched throughout the years.
I think I became a firefighter, obviously, the influence of my father. He was very proud of us. It's 31 years later, and I'm still a firefighter, and I love the job. He, put us in the right path, but we have to choose that path. 9/11 that morning, I was off duty. My mother had called me, made me aware what was going on.
I called my kids. They're both chiefs on the department. And I called Joe first, and he said, "Oh yeah, Ma, I saw it, I'm getting ready to go down." And then I called Chuck, and he said, "Yeah, Ma, I'm getting ready too, but oh, Ma, another plane hit." And I called Ray, and he was like, "It's chaos down here, so we really don't know what's going on." And I did see him when in a video. He was in the bottom of the first building, and to me, he looked calm, which made me feel good. I saw him getting people out of that building, and then that building went down.
All of a sudden, that noise again, that freight train again, and I looked up, and the North Tower was starting to collapse. I just turned to my left. I crouched down and I got ready for the hit. And I bent down and immediately a thought came to my mind, I'm gonna die here. And I'm all alone. And I'm not gonna see my wife. I'm not gonna see my kids. And immediately I started saying, "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee." And as I reflect on that now, I wasn't alone. I really felt she was with me.
It took a while for them to figure out how many companies were in there and how many people we lost. So we talked, Chuck and I, and we said, we'll stay here until we find them. And at the point, we went to work. We went to work like everybody else that went down there. And if anybody knows how to get out of it, it's going to be Ray Downey. Night went on, and we just slept on the ground and wherever we could find a spot for a couple days. We were there for like 6 or 7 days, didn't come home.
I was there from 9/11 that morning and was at the site every single day until May, when the last piece of metal was taken out of the pit. Or police department started a family center in the auditorium at One Police Plaza. And we would go there every day to be with the families. Every morning we would have mass. They ate there, they cried there, they prayed there. We didn't know how many police officers we lost.
There were a lot of priests that came down to Ground Zero. So I saw a lot of the good priests in action that day. The nights, it's a life of service. I see a great connection. Firefighter, a knight, and priest, all service to other people. You put other people first.
At first, they thought I was one of the missing. There was a fireman from Jersey that was able to locate and call the fire department in New York City and said, "Listen, you got a couple of guys here," and I was one of them. They took me to the pulmonary ICU because of my lungs, and I was still on a mechanical respirator. And that was my first recollection. I started opening up my eyes, and then my wife, Eileen, was sleeping in a cot next to me. And she saw me, that I opened my eyes, and I said, "Ray Downey?" And she had a little tear. And then I started crying, and they put me to sleep again, to rest. And then after that, it was the beginning of my recovery.
After 9/11, the community came and supported the family tremendously. This Deer Park community, the Knights of Columbus is a big part of it, supported the family.
When I look back at my father, we didn't know a lot. He didn't talk about himself. Very modest man, very humble. I think his perseverance was unparalleled, and I think you combine all of that, he was just an exemplary knight.
So my physical ailments were tough to deal with, The mental was even more, The survival guilt was immense. And so I did rely on prayer. I prayed to Ray Downey all the time. I always say it was the worst day, but it was also our finest day. The support, the life-saving rescues that were done, by ordinary first responders, but certainly civilians too. Over 25,000 lives were saved. I look back on 9/11, it was about patriotism. We were the first soldiers in that war, first responders. We became soldiers.
On September 12th, the Knights of Columbus established the Heroes Fund to help the families of first responders who made the ultimate sacrifice the day before. The fund was started with an initial gift from the Supreme Council of $500,000. That was quickly matched by individual knights and councils around the world. So, within days, the families of first responders began receiving financial assistance from the Knights of Columbus.
Who would have dared to believe the United States would be attacked by terrorists? But let me say now that our order's response was a shining moment for the Knights of Columbus.
It didn't matter if you were a Knight of Columbus, it didn't matter what religion you were, it didn't matter what you believed in. If you wore a uniform and your family was in need at that point, we went ahead and handed out some money to that family to try to help them out.
The Knights rolled that program out so quickly that these families they were going to visit were still in the worst part of their mourning period. There were children still waiting for Dad to come home.
To be a fireman or a policeman in New York City, that's a young man's job, right? So they all had young families. And when I went into some of these houses and I saw the little kids there, it broke my heart to know that these children were gonna grow up and not really have a father. I cried in my car a couple of times coming home after seeing some of these families and seeing the little kids running around.
I became a New York City firefighter in October of 1993. Went into the academy with my brother Timmy, followed in the footsteps of my older brother Tommy, as well as my father, who was a firefighter in Brooklyn as well in the 70s. My brother Timmy, who was a firefighter in Squad 18, he was in the North Tower when it collapsed. My brother Tommy was a captain of Ladder 132. He was in the South Tower when that collapsed. Knowing my brothers, that's exactly where they would have wanted to have been. You know, my brother Tommy being the captain, he's in charge of his men. He cared greatly for those that worked for him. And my brother Timmy, being a people person like he was, you know, certainly would not run away from somebody who's in need. 9/11 was an extremely painful time for everyone involved, me in particular, having lost two brothers. But I was blessed with a strong family, and not only the love and support of family and friends, but organizations like the Knights of Columbus who reached out and donated funds. And it was that generosity I never forgot.
The Knights of Columbus Heroes Fund was established right after 9/11. You know, charity, unity, fraternity, patriotism. Whether it was the Columbiates helping out my mom and my sisters, or the Knights helping us out. So the Knights has always been there for us. I mean, it was really special from the Knights of Columbus.
I became an agent to carry out one of the main visions of Father Michael McGivney to protect widows and families and members. With Ken Haskell and his family, I did my best to help that family, you know, with their situation, just to try to be another emotional support for them.
The Knights of Columbus helped my family during a very challenging time by just reaffirming the belief that there are good people in the world, providing money through the Heroes Fund for my mother and my sister-in-law for the losses that they endured of my two brothers. Even after 20 years, it's still so fresh in your mind, and it resonates because it really was tremendous bravery and selflessness and sacrifice that went on all throughout that day. I know they're in a better place, and that gives me peace as I continue my life here on Earth. I know that someday I'll see them again.
The first pillar of charity was evident in the immediate establishment of the Heroes Fund. There was no second thought. It was a community effort that had to take place, but it wasn't just a local community effort. It was a national and, dare I say, international effort to help victims.
The tragic events of 9/11 shook our nation to its core. But instead of allowing fear to paralyze us, Knights came together as never before. The heroic witness of our brother Knights who put their lives on the line as first responders showed us what courage and heroism really look like. The Heroes Fund allowed Knights far and wide to offer immediate assistance to the families of first responders. It was very much in keeping with Father McGivney's founding vision for the order, to care for the vulnerable, the widow, and the orphan. As we solemnly commemorate the 20th anniversary of 9/11, we also honor those who showed us in a profound way what it means to be a Knight.